Hello, everybody. It's Graham Coath with another My Music. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Darry. Hi, Darry. About Sixth Crowd, their music, what's going on in the Ukraine at the moment, and everything else. But first, we're just going to have a quick word from our sponsors. So hold tight, get ready.
I need to get going, mate. I'll see you later.
Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Where are you coming from? I hear plates and crockery and things in the background.
Thank you for having me. Well, I'm right now in Ireland. I went here to spend my vacation before the war happened, and then then I'm just here because I cannot go home right now.
No. And where is home for you?
My home now is Kiev, Ukraine. Originally, I'm from Eastern Ukraine, the part that you might know as Donbass. I grew up there, but I moved to Kiev like 15 years ago, and now my home is Kiev.
Yeah. Are you in touch with? You got family there at the moment, or have your family managed to get out? Or
my parents are in the occupied territory. They decided to stay at their home. It's maybe generational. They didn't want to leave their land. So they decided to stay, and it's quiet at the moment there. Well, as quiet as it can be.
As quiet as a war-torn land can be, etc.
Yes.
I mean, I presume you're in constant communication with them because things change every single day.
Yes, absolutely, of course. Yeah, but so far, parents are relatively on the safe side, but friends and close people are scattered all over Ukraine and world. Some people are in army now, some are volunteering, some had to flee. It feels like we all have just lost in the world at the moment, but everyone is doing what they can.
Why are you in Ireland, may I ask? What took you to Ireland?
Truly just beauty of the country.
Right.
I've been here recently, and I didn't know the war is going to happen, so I just came here to spend a month here to work. I brought my music with me. I brought instruments. I even brought my cat to just enjoy a month. But
Yeah. Have you been?
Now I'm here.
Obviously, we'll come back to the Ukraine and the music in a minute. But have you always been inspired by Irish music in your life?
I wouldn't say. I just like the nature, and people are here super nice. And I was surprised when I first came. I didn't expect anything, but I was touched. And the second time I came, just because I knew I'm gonna love it.
Oh no, that's great. So, how long have you been doing music?
I'm trying to count right now. Like, I started as a musician in general in 2010, so it's like 12 years. But my solo project, the one which is Sixth Crowd, it started in 2018, so it's like 3 years. Third year now.
3rd year. And did you grow up surrounded by music? Were your mother and father musicians at all, or no musical? No.
No. So, well, the only musical person in my family was my grandmother, but she didn't play anything, but she sang a lot, like all the time. When I was a kid, I was surrounded by my grandmother's skin, and I asked my parents to put me to the music school, but they didn't. So I had to learn all the stuff when I grew up on my own. So
Can I ask, music in the Ukraine, is it an important part of the Ukrainian culture? Music, it seems to be. What we've seen on the TV in terms of some of the most hopeful moments in amongst what seems to be hopeless have been these moments of people reaching out through music from the Ukraine. Where there was a band that I saw that were broadcasting live from a bunker somewhere in the Ukraine, and then I think we were all touched on the TV the other night when we were watching. Anyone that was watching Comic Relief, I don't know whether you saw any of that, but there was a little girl who sung in your language, Frozen, in front of everybody. I mean, that was truly moving. But obviously, music seems to be, a very important part of the Ukrainian culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised. Is it not everywhere like this? It feels like music is the thing that gets us through the light times and dark times. I mean, like, I do remember being in Kiev at times at Maidan, our revolution, and people would just sing standing just to, it's cold and sometimes it's desperate and you need something to keep you up, and music is actually the thing. And right now a lot of our musicians, surprisingly, went to army. Like, I personally know several people who are like, they're singers, they're not fighters, but they decided to help somehow. They went to territorial defense and stuff. But back to music and culture, yes, it's super important part. And even people who are not musicians, well, mostly people who are not musicians, they just needed to be around. I would say, yeah, music is probably, well, maybe I am biased because it feels for me it's the most important, but I'm connected to it, so yes.
I mean, when you say, isn't it like this everywhere? I mean, I assumed it might be, but at the same time, you don't want to assume, if you see what I mean. You don't want to necessarily assume that, a place where you've never been, and I've never been to the Ukraine, that the culture there is the same, and that the way that people feel about music is the same. I mean, that it's always lovely to hear it, that music transcends, culture, people, places, whatever, and it's the same wherever you are in the world in a way. So I mean, that's always wonderful to hear. What is traditional Ukrainian music like?
This is an interesting question because it's been oppressed for a long time, actually. And if you asked me the same question like 4 years ago, I would probably say, it's something, not really exciting. We had like some songs, but they weren't really standing out. But right now, I know it's not really true. Well, the thing is, let me go a little bit back in history. When Ukraine got into Soviet Union, Soviets needed to sort of make an average culture. So like they did not want to Ukraine or any other country in the Union to stand out with their, history, because songs contain a lot of history.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, it was my Siri. So, what they did, they installed like choirs in every tiny part of country. Like every village would have choir, where people have to, not have, but they can go to sing. And it sounds lovely, right? It sounds like they wanted to develop the culture. But the thing is, they were slightly changing music all the time. Like you come to sing and you're coming to sing your grandmother's song, but you will be told that you should slightly change it and sing it on this manner. So over the, decades, by the end of the Soviet Union, Ukrainian music sounded like any other Slavic generic music. They just tried to, to make it not interesting. But only after 2014, when our revolution happened, we kind of decided to pay attention to, like, is it true? What is our music actually? Is it really the same as Russian? It can't be. So, there appeared a lot of folkloristic expedition. People went to deep rural villages to find, old babushkas and didushkas who can sing like old songs before Soviets came.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and this is how we actually now have the libraries. Like, they really did amazing work, and we have libraries from different songs from different regions. And now we know that, people in Western Ukraine sing in one way, people in Eastern sing in different way, and they're like both similar, but different flowers. And it translates nice into modern culture, because we have a lot of like pop culture in the Ukraine refers a lot to folk now, but it's not. They don't just try to re-sing it. They take some flowers, some words, some instruments, and put it into the modern music, which is relevant to people.
So people are beginning to sort of touch on those traditional, maybe themes or words or whatever that were there all those years ago, to try and keep it alive and put it into a more modern format. That's amazing. That's wonderful. You mentioned babushka. I mean, obviously a lot of people, the only time they've ever heard that word was when Kate Bush sang it. Just explain to people what a babushka
is. Sure. But this is a Ukrainian word for grandmother, and this is how we refer to elderly women, like in villages.
There you go. Were you surprised the first time you heard Kate Bush sing that? It's like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So in terms of your own music, stylistically, what when did you first, or what was the thing that sort of really music that you really sort of gravitated towards when you first started writing?
As a Sixth Crowd, or in general? Because it was
just in general, yeah.
Well, when I started a long time ago as a bass player, and I really loved if you know the band Morphine, it's sort of jazzy rock. So I was fascinated by the fact that bass guitar can be used not just as a rhythmical instrument, but like as a melody. So I would say that I got fascinated by not traditional usage of instruments, and by mixing genres and all this stuff. So on my way, I was with my bands. I was trying to find something not straightforward, like mix up some genres and do something weird-ish,
something a little bit different.
In
what you were doing. Yeah. Okay. So moving forward to Sixth Crowd. Why Sixth Crowd for a start? What is that? A fantastic name.
Why, thank you. So psychologists in behavioral psychology, they know 5 types of crowds. Like people gather into crowds to do different stuff, like to fight, to celebrate, to something else. I don't really now remember. I do not remember all 5 of them. But when I was looking for a name, I was thinking that when people gather together to dance, it's like whole different thing. It's whole different vibe. And I decided that in my world, it should be the Sixth Crowd, people who gather together to dance.
Lovely. So it's a kind of tribal essence to it around music, etc. And then going back to what we said earlier, music liberates around the world.
Absolutely.
It unifies, it brings people together. So we've got that kind of nature in there. And tell us a little bit more about writing at the moment and writing, what you're writing about.
Well, right at the moment when the war started, I was trying to make my input into that connection between dance music and folk music, because at some moment in my research and being fascinated by folk music, I understood that modern dance music and the folk music have a lot of common, in terms that one is mainly about rhythm and another is mainly about voice, and those two are the first instruments we had ever as a species. So I started to explore it a little bit more, and I wanted to bring the folk music from my home region, because as I mentioned before, the interest of folk music in Ukraine started after 2014, and at that time my home region was already occupied, so it wasn't easy, and if possible at all, to go there in deep rural regions and record babushkas, And that's why Ukrainian modern culture, which has reference from folk culture, has reference mostly from Western culture, Western Ukrainian, I mean. And I was slightly ashamed. It felt like my home place doesn't exist on the cultural map.
Right.
The only thing that people know about place where I grew up is war, and it just didn't feel right. So I digged, around. I spent quite some time digging until I found out one of expats, the woman who lives now in Canada, back then did an expedition, and she recorded songs from my eastern part of Ukraine too.
Wow.
And I learned. I was so happy to find it because I thought it was, completely lost in the history. And I started learning those songs, and I thought that I will, mix what I did previously as a sixth crowd. I'm writing dance music. It's a different story why, but I'm fascinated by it now. And I started mixing together with my home region music. So this is how the first single appeared, and I'm working right now on 4 more songs. But this is work in progress. I truly didn't plan on releasing a single. I thought I'd finish the album and wrap it up and write a story about it and then publish it. But then a day or two before the war, I just didn't know if I will have ever chance to publish music anymore. So I decided I need to put one song which is already even mastered. It was completely finished. I should publish it now.
Wow, what an experience to go through, that you just didn't know what the future was going to be. So let's get it out there.
Yeah,
and how did that feel? How did it feel getting reaction to it as well? How did that feel?
I have to admit, I was slightly scared that people would think that it's not appropriate time for music for some. I mean, probably because I was truly scared myself in general, and it translated to everything. But then I saw that it felt like people need it only because everything around is not about music, not about joy, not about culture. It's about being destroyed, and it's completely hard and dark. So people needed some fresh music to just it feels like everyone is not going to music in Ukraine. I mean, to go and listen music on purpose. But if you hear that someone released something new, you're like, okay, I'll give it a chance. And then you put on some music, and then you're like, oh, nice, I needed it. I needed some music,
Yeah.
And I heard from people from my home region that they are glad to see that our region is not only a war point anymore. So I feel like on this regard, my music is on point.
Do you feel in some way that you're joining the fight with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, music is a weapon too. It just doesn't have to kill, but it
Yeah, but in the way that this music is referencing something that was quashed, right?
Yes,
that was changed, and yet something survived of it, and it managed to make it through. And in a way, is that something that is it? Do you feel in some way it's like a beacon of hope for what is going on out there, that your people will survive this, that will come, this will end, they will manage to be there?
I'm pretty sure we will be there, truly. Maybe it's my Ukrainian blood talking, but I'm absolutely sure we will survive. Just it's a question of price, and I mean, what is happening in Ukraine right now is completely awful. Like, a lot of people are dying, but our fight spirit is pretty high despite all this stuff, because turned out Ukrainian is a great warrior nation, and
yeah No, absolutely. Are you surprised by the? I mean, you're in Ireland, but obviously you get the feel of what it's like in Ireland and the UK. Are you quite surprised by the amount of support for the Ukraine from over here?
Yes, I'm very surprised. I mean, on the first days of war, I went out of. I'm staying in a tiny village like Waterville, and to grocery store and all this stuff is like 3 kilometers away. So I went to town, and I saw flag on every building. I never saw so many flags outside of Ukraine ever. So yes, this is. I think it's very important for the spirit of people in Ukraine to see that all the world is with us, and I think it helps people in Ukraine to find strength to survive next day and next day and next day.
And are you watching this from our Western media as well? I mean, has that been quite a shock to you as well, just to see just how twisted some media in the world is?
Oh well, living next to Russia, I think I was aware of how twisted media could be, because it didn't come as a surprise, but I was touched and surprised by amount of presence of Ukraine in the Western media. It's like all the world is watching it, but the longer it goes, the more I understand that, because it's happening this way because Ukraine is now sort of fighting on the edge of Europe, because our enemy is hard to project, and they have this crazy imperialistic appetite. They're now threatening Lithuania and other countries in Europe, which is hard to imagine is possible. But I wasn't able to imagine tanks on my street before, so I guess yeah.
Well, I don't think any of us can really fully appreciate what it must be like to be in the Ukraine at the moment, and just what the suffering is like over there. I mean, I think we can all feel scared. I think everybody has felt scared over the last few weeks, and we're all worried with what's happening in terms of how far this will go. So I think that it's something that has made everybody sit up and reflect, and it's almost like we've just come out of a war as well with this pandemic. Even though that's not a war that's over, but it really does feel like we've literally just got on top of one battle, and then there's another battle in the world. Are you? I mean, we're living in very weird times. Are you? Is this seeping into your music at all?
You mean the war?
Yeah, the war, COVID. Is any of that seeping into what you're writing about? Or
the COVID did seep. It was when it just outbroke, and we were all locked up in homes. It was like first time. Well, now it doesn't look scary when I look back, but at the time it was like end of the world or something. So I was writing some techno at the moment, and it was like pretty much dark, and all the lyrics there was not a lot of lyrics, but all of us reflecting my current state. Right now, war doesn't come to my music just yet. Well, mostly because I wasn't writing these days. I wasn't really able. I mean, these weeks. Only the last 2 days I opened my instruments and DAW and started doing some music. Well, my teacher singer was doing some fundraiser event, and she needed Ukrainian arrangements, so she asked me to do it. So this is why I opened music at all, and well, I'm grateful to the chance and to her, because it feels like I had it kept for safety reasons, because if I open up music, I open up feelings, and then it's gonna hurt and I'm gonna cry a lot. but now I had to open it up, and I hope that next days I'm gonna go back to writing music, because this is my weapon in this war.
Absolutely. Now, where can people get this music? Because I want people to hear it, and also, is there anywhere any kind of explanation as to where the bits have come from in terms of historically?
Yes. First of all, to hear my music is pretty easy at any streaming now. Like Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere, and you can purchase it on my Bandcamp page.
Do that, everyone. Spend some money, please.
And I sent all the profits from this last single to Ukrainian humanitarian center.
Brilliant.
And yeah, the Bandcamp page and SoundCloud page has a little bit of explanation about this last song, the Sokolonko. This is the harvest song from my home region. Well, the lyrics are from Harvest Song, but obviously I reimagined it musically.
So how old are those lyrics then?
Well, I have no idea. I mean,
right, we've no idea.
It's folk song. I know that it was recorded like in 2010 or something by originally recorded by old babushkas, old women in a village, singing it like a choir. And I heard this record, and I learned the song and I modified it, and this is how it got to my track.
Do you know from any of the other kind of explorations of music from old babushkas, just how far back some of the other folk songs have gone from around the Ukraine?
I think the only way we can judge about it is when we look what are they singing about, because some songs are singing about historical events that we know from books were like somewhere in 14th or 15th century.
Wow.
But it's mostly historical songs. They have longer life, I believe, because their purpose is to now we have books. Previously people would travel from village to village and just tell stories, but sometimes they will sing stories.
Wow.
And this song is about harvesting, and so I think it's like several centuries back, but not a bazillion centuries back.
Wow. So that's amazing. Well, look, whilst you're there, I hope you do get to soak up some of the Irish history as well.
Yeah, actually, I have now a book. It's not right in my hands, but it's somewhere around the house about Irish history. I didn't open it yet, but right now I kind of feel like history has a huge importance, because if you don't know it, it's gonna repeat over and over and over and over. So
yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I love about living in this part of the country. I'm in the southwest of England. And we have an amazing sort of folk music tradition down here, and we have a festival down here, Sidmouth Folk Festival, which is very famous. And of course, some of the songs from down here go back, hundreds of years, hundreds of years, and it's wonderful. It's always wonderful to hear those songs of, miners down mines, and people living completely different lives, and bringing it to life again for you. So these things are important. We need to keep these things alive, these stories alive, because we can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. The songs from people are songs about people. It's like, and it's it gives us information on such a thin level. It's easier to learn from songs than it's to learn from books. Like not everyone is fan of huge history folions with all this stuff, but songs are kind of telling story. It's like you're watching the series or a film, but it gives you some information, and it's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I wish you all the best with the music. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for sharing really quite a personal story today with us as well about what's going on. I hope your mum and dad keep safe. where they are, and let's just all hope and pray that this war ends as soon as possible. So,
absolutely, yes. Thank you, and thank you for all the support to Ukrainian people. We appreciate it.
thank you. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.
Bye bye.